So again, thank you all for joining. The goal of our applicant webinar, we do this each year, is to help you all write a strong nomination, whether you're writing a nomination for yourself for 30 under 30, or if you're writing a nomination, if you're nominating someone else. We wanted to give you an opportunity to better understand what we're looking for in these applications. And we also wanted to share with you a little bit more about the program, what we mean when we're saying environmental education. And we also want to be here to answer any questions that you have. And like I said earlier, this is being recorded, and I will be posting the recording on our website on the 30 under 30 landing page within the next 48 hours. So you will have this to refer back to. And yeah, again, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're really excited to see so much interest in this program and really growing interest in this program over the last few years. So we're excited to have you here. And you all are doing a great job at this already, but just a reminder to keep yourselves muted when you're not speaking, just so that we can avoid background noise. And I will pause for questions throughout, but you can type questions in the chat at any time. Melissa is helping me field these questions, and then we'll also have time at the end for any questions as well. And please don't hesitate to let me know at any time if I've said anything that is not clear. I definitely want to take time to make sure that I'm being very clear and that you'll are having the opportunity to fully understand all of the advice that I'm sharing with you. And we are not live captioning this webinar, but there will be captions on the recording on YouTube. So you will have the option to see captions when this is recorded and uploaded. And first of all, wanted to introduce ourselves. My name is Nina Hamilton, and I manage EE 30 under 30 at the North American Association for Environmental Education, or NAAE, as you may hear us call it. And I'm joined by Melissa Hopkins-Taggart, my colleague.
Hello, everyone. I'm Melissa Hopkins-Taggart, and I also work at the North American Association for Environmental Education, also known as NAAE. And I am here to support Nina and all of you during this webinar. So feel free to ask questions in the chat anytime, and I will turn it back over to Nina.
Great. So, really quickly, first off, wanted to give you an introduction to our organization, NAAE, which EE 30 under 30 is a program of NAAE. So we are basically, we call ourselves a professional, the professional backbone for environmental education in North America. But really, we are a professional association for environmental educators, for anyone using environmental education throughout North America, but also around the world. And we're really working to help advance the field of EE around the world. And EE 30 under 30 is one of our global programs that helps us try to do this. And so we have a wide range of programs working to build capacity, strengthen networks, linking research to practice, and a lot more. And you can find out more by visiting our website, which is here, NAAE.org. And we have a lot on there, so I will let you go and explore. It's really amazing, everything that's up there, and lots of resources as well. And so also, before diving into EE 30 under 30, the program, I wanted to briefly share with you some ways that we define environmental education, or EE. You may hear me saying EE a lot here as an environmental education. And we hope that this might help you as you write your nominations and help you reflect on your own work and see how it connects with some of these broader definitions of environmental education. And I do also want to say, these are just a few definitions of environmental education. We do recognize that this looks different in all different communities all around the world. There's all different approaches to this. So we really do try to be as inclusive as we can in how we talk about environmental education. And through your nominations, we really look forward to hearing from you however you are using education to build this sustainable future. And so these definitions I'm going to show here are just a couple of definitions, just that can serve as inspiration. And there's some websites here that I will share also in the slides after, where, and yes, Melissa has put it in the chat as well, where you can read a little bit more about the definition and some discussion about what environmental education is. So overall, EE is a learning process, and it really helps equip people with the knowledge, skills, and motivations to be stewards of the environment. And like I said, it is a learning process, so it's all about developing critical thinking skills and helping people to make informed decisions about the environment. So overall, it is the really important thing here is it's not what to think, but how to think. And we really see EE as a way to encourage open discussions, to encourage problem solving, and to help build the capacity of people and groups and communities to address sustainability issues in their communities, whatever those issues might be. And so just a couple examples. EE can give people the opportunity to build knowledge and awareness about issues, and especially gaining a better understanding of the interconnectedness of how social, environmental, and economic aspects of sustainability all are interconnected. It also is a way for people to build skills to address these issues that they are learning about. It's also, it can be a great process for people to reflect on their values and their attitudes towards the environment, but also towards sustainability more broadly. And ultimately, we hope that EE can help people make informed decisions and take action on these issues that are raised in their communities. And so just to give you some examples of what your ultimate goals or your objectives through environmental education can be a whole lot of things. It's not just about raising awareness. Your objective through environmental education can be to build knowledge, it can be to shape attitudes, it can be to build skills, and it can also be to encourage participation. I mean, that is a very important one. And so these are just some examples of what your EE work can strive to achieve or strive to shape. And with EE, your audience can be anyone and anywhere. So it's a lifelong learning process for children, adults, anyone, and it can be multi-generational. And it can happen anywhere within the formal school system, outside of school, in communities, nature centers, really anywhere. And so I encourage you to take a look at these two links. Melissa shared one of these in the chat, which is our own webpage about what environmental education is and why it matters. And I've also included the link here to the Tbilisi Declaration, which I won't go into, but it includes a really great overview of globally how we can define environmental education and what the important aspects are. Thank you, Melissa, for sharing that as well. Okay, so now on to 30 under 30. Yes, and I see your question in the chat here. We are sharing the recording of this. I recognize we're giving you a lot of information and we will share the recording. So building leadership is one of NAAE's core goals, and we have a couple programs that work to build leadership, and EE 30 under 30 is one of them. So EE 30 under 30 is our global program that is working to recognize, award, and build the capacity of talent that exists all over the world, of young leaders all over the world who are using education in a wide variety of ways to really influence change in their communities, whatever sustainability issues there might be in their communities. And so with 30 Under 30, our goal is to celebrate that leadership of young people around the world. So part of it is to help you give a professional boost to for wherever you are in your work or in your career. But we really hope through this program we can help celebrate what young leaders are doing around the world, and through that help inspire others as well. So as an EE 30 Under 30, you would receive access to the following. You would join our virtual alumni community, which brings really great opportunities for networking and learning from all of the other EE 30 Under 30 all over the world. We have 150 of them, so there are a lot to learn from. And we're constantly expanding on the networking opportunities that we provide through this community. As the community keeps growing every year, we bring in more EE 30 Under 30 each year. Another important part of the program is recognition. So as an awardee, we would work with you to help you share your story on our platform as well as your own. And you'd also receive a physical award to recognize this great award. You'd also have access to professional development opportunities throughout the year. And some years this includes scholarship opportunities to attend our conference and a lot more. And although this isn't guaranteed every year, all of our awardees and alumni are eligible to apply for grant opportunities in the years that we can offer small grants through the Changemaker Grants program. And so this program started in 2016 and has very quickly grown in its reach. We now are in our 6th year then, that means, and we have 150 alumni from 34 countries. I think the youngest awardee has been 13 years old, and now some of our alumni are over 30. So also wanted to give a shout out to our sponsors at the bottom of the slide who've really been instrumental in helping us build this program over the years. Okay, and quickly about the timeline, because I get this question a lot. We are hoping to notify all nominees by August 2021, hopefully earlier in the month. And then our goal is to announce the class of 2021 by the end, but later that month, so by the end of August. And I normally send out updates if it looks like we are delayed for any reason. I will send out updates to all nominees to let you know if there's any delay in that process. And in terms of eligibility, you can nominate yourself or a colleague. So if you are not under 30, you can still nominate someone. I'm sure all of us know great young leaders who we can nominate for this award. But the nominees, so the person you nominate, must be 30 years or younger on December 31st of this year. So I get this question a lot, and we don't have any flexibility on that. So if you think about how old they will be on December 31st, if they are already 31 on December 31st, they're no longer eligible, unfortunately. So you must also use environmental education somehow in your work, and I encourage you to look back at those definitions and see how your work might align. Or tell us otherwise how your work is using environmental education. You have to have demonstrated some kind of leadership through your work already. So we do need to see that you are already showing leadership in environmental education. And you have to be able to complete the application in English. Now, we are not looking for perfectly fluent English. We need you to be able to communicate about your work and your impact and your passions in English. So don't worry if you are not a perfect English writer. We really emphasize with our reviewers that we are not looking for perfect English. But unfortunately, we can only review applications in English at this time. But we do accept nominations from anywhere in the world. Okay, so before I dive into the application and the specific questions and some advice that we have, are there any questions about the program, about eligibility, about the timeline?
Nothing in the chat. We can probably move on. We'll give people a couple more minutes, a couple more seconds. Oh, I have a quick question. Alex Leonard. Alex, you can either write that in the, does it need to be related to work? Oh, would you like to say? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry if you can hear me. So my question here is, you were mentioning that the environmental, essentially when you're applying, it has to show environmental education through your work. I'm just wondering if the context that I'm applying for, if that's outside of my work, if it's say extracurricular, this kind of thing, or just like volunteering with a nonprofit, like, is that still eligible?
Yes, that's a great question. So when I say work, I mean that very broadly. So your environmental education work, your efforts, your initiatives, and that definitely does not have to be related to any paid work, not at all. So it doesn't have to be part of your, if your day-to-day job is different, it's totally fine. It can be any way that you are engaging with environmental education. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that clarification. The second point is, if there's more than one instance that we feel can demonstrate this, can we mention both? And does that help? Or should we really focus our application on one specific project? Or say one specific initiative? Or can we highlight a range of things that we've done in our community?
Yeah, so that's also a great question. You can talk about however many initiatives or examples of environmental education that you'd like. I think I will talk a little bit about this in the application, but the only trade-off here is you want to make sure that you can talk in enough detail about any examples that you give so that our reviewers can really see how your work is connected to environmental education. The only thing that sometimes we see is sometimes if applicants or nominees list or describe a lot of different examples, they run out of space to really go into detail about the specific kinds of skills or attitudes they're hoping to shape through those activities. So I would say it might be kind of a balance, but you're definitely welcome to talk about however many initiatives as you want to. I can't really say if it would be a stronger application one way or the other, but a lot of nominees talk about a lot of different projects that they're working on. So you can definitely talk about more than one, as long as you're able to give enough detail and especially examples about how you're showing leadership through those projects. So definitely, I recommend focusing on projects where you are showing leadership, so you can show that you've helped to drive, you've played a leadership role in those projects or initiatives. Does that help?
Awesome. Yeah, that really is helpful. Thank you, Dina. And so last question here, when we talk about education, is the focus on educating youth, or can we give examples of education to any age range? Like if, say, you're doing an education project with, say, elders, or, just an example.
Yeah, it can be with anyone. Here, I'll go back to the slide here. Yeah, so anyone, anywhere. We really welcome any kinds of examples of education, of environmental education.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to keep moving on to the application because there may be more questions out there that overlap with with what we're going to talk about. And I'm sure there will be more questions after this. So we've talked about environmental education, we've talked about our organization, a little bit about the program. Now we're going to give you some advice, some insights into writing a strong nomination. And make sure I've got my notes here. Okay. So, and we've collected this advice over the years, especially from our reviewers that review your nominations. So each year we have a whole group of reviewers that go through and review all of the nominations. And so we've collected this advice over the years, collecting the common pieces of advice that our reviewers have when they're looking through the nominations. So first off, some big overall advice. Sorry, I've got a lot of things open here. So first and foremost, we really recommend that you give concrete examples as much as you can throughout your application. So examples about how you're using environmental education, so examples of specific activities that you're leading, specific examples of where you have shown leadership in certain areas. You know, if you're talking about a leadership quality that you have in the question about leadership qualities, give an example of how you've shown that quality. Giving concrete examples really can help paint a clear picture for our reviewers about who you are and about your work as they're reading through your nomination. The next overall piece of advice is to include as much detail as possible and use the word count as a guide. So if the word limit is 300 words, we do encourage you to use all of it. You don't have to, but that gives you an idea of how much detail we like to see about your work. And so, Alex, this goes back to what I was talking about. You do only have a certain amount of space to talk about your work. But we do, within that space, we do want to see as much detail as we can about your work and about your role in your projects. And if you have anything else about your work or your projects that you can share in addition to what you write out in your answers to the questions. So if you have extra links or videos or even social media posts or news articles about your work, we do encourage you to share those. There is a space at I think near the end of the application for you to add those in. It's not required. And we do make sure that our reviewers don't, you know, it's not a bad thing if your project does not have a lot of publicity. That's totally fine. But if you do have any additional links that you can provide, we do encourage you to do that, just to give us a better idea about your work. And overall, you'll probably hear us say this a lot, and there is kind of an art to this, but we want you to tell us your story. So we want to know about your work and your impact, but also your motivations, like about your personal connection to your work and, you know, your personal vision for the future. We want to hear your story. And often the nominees that are the most memorable are those that can tell a clear story about themselves as leaders and about their personal connection with their work and their long-term goals. So keep this in mind throughout the application. Yes, okay. And then the deadline is May 5th. Please do keep that in mind. Oops. Okay. So we're gonna actually go through each question, each of the like open response questions, and give you some advice. Some of these are new questions, but giving you advice based on what I've seen with past applications. So the first question, this is a new one that we added this year. The first question is to tell us about yourself. What is your story? You hear story again. What do you want us to know about yourself? So the next couple questions after this, so the like question 2, 3, 4, we'll ask you about your work and your impact. But with this first question, we're really giving you an open space to tell us whatever you want to tell us about yourself and about your story. So think about, aside from what you're doing with environmental education, aside from the specifics about your projects and the impact that it has, what do you want us to know about you? And so here, like I said earlier, we encourage you to share, to tell us about your personal connection to your work. So how did you end up where you are now? What inspired you or led you down this path that you've taken so far? And so through your whole nomination, we want to know not only about your projects and your impact, but also about the person behind it. That's a really important part of your story. So with this question, you have space to talk about anything that you want to share about your background, about your passions, your identity, anything else that you want to share. Okay, and the next question is, how do you use education to engage people in addressing sustainability issues? Describe your work and your impact, and be clear about your role in any initiatives that you describe. And again, when we say describe your work, this doesn't have to be paid work. This is basically describe your initiatives, your efforts, any environmental education efforts that you are working on. So if you've submitted a nomination in the past, this will look a little bit different. Previously, in previous years, we asked about your work and your impact separately, but this year we combine that into one question. So make sure that you describe both your work and your impact. And so with this question, really, of course, focus on your work that is linked to environmental education, and ideally work that you have already done or you're currently doing. We do get asked sometimes if you can talk about work, about projects that you are planning and that you're going to implement. But we really encourage you to focus on projects that you are already implementing, that it's ideally that you've already been doing for a little bit of time, so that you're starting to see some of the impacts of that work. So you can think of this as describing the who, what, why of your work. So what are you doing? What is the impact? Who is it impacting? And for some context, why are your efforts important? What are the issues that that you are addressing? And so the important tips that I have here is, one, give enough detail about your EE initiatives for us to clearly see how you incorporate EE into your work. So for example, if you are doing workshops, be sure to tell us about the goal of the workshops, maybe an example of the activities. And so if you're talking about the goal of any of your projects, if you have space, we really like to know, what knowledge are you trying to share? What specific skills are you hoping to build? So try to be as specific as you can, and that just helps to create a really clear picture about what you're doing, not just saying you're doing workshops. So you go into a little bit more detail. That's a really common piece of feedback that we get from reviewers. And the second tip is to be clear about your role in any initiatives that you describe. So you don't have to have founded your own organization. You don't have to have started your own initiative. If you did, great. But you can be doing really inspiring things through existing programs, through existing organizations. But especially in those cases, we need you to be clear about your role and your leadership in those initiatives. So especially if you're part of a team, we encourage you to not just say, so don't just say, we did this. We want to know what your role is. And it's great that you're working with a team. Collaboration is really important, but we do want to hear about your leadership and your specific role. And you don't need to spend a lot of time or space talking about your role, but it can be as simple as saying, you know, I contributed in this way, instead of saying we did this. I will also just say about impact. We understand that environmental education work can take years and years and years before we see any tangible impact. Sometimes you can see impacts earlier. And we also understand, you know, many of us don't have the resources to be doing extensive evaluations. So we don't need to see statistics about your impact. But we do want to hear your story about how your work is, how your projects are having an impact in your community and how they're contributing to the sustainability. All right. Maybe I'll take a moment here to pause. There are questions coming in.
Yeah, we actually have one question that I think is relevant to everyone, and you're probably going to get to this, but there was a question around, can we upload images of our work on the application form? And the answer is yes, there is a spot to upload images or supporting materials at the end of the application. So thanks for that question.
Yes, exactly. Yes, and there are spaces to, there is a separate question where you can provide links to news articles, etc. So I would encourage you to put any links in that separate question, so that you're not taking away you know, from your word limit from the other questions. And another question from Alex here. At the end of the application for additional materials, what file types are allowed? Is there a file size limit? So if you could pretty much, I think unless you have like a really weird file type,
Yeah, pretty much all of them.
It should allow pretty much any file type. If you have a file type that it is not allowing, you can let me know, but you can put videos, documents, Excel, PDF, images, anything. Not sure about a file size limit. I will look at that and I can let you know.
Yeah, I think it just says there's. Yeah, it says that you can upload up to 3 files, and it gives you a bunch of options for how many file types are supported, Alex. So when you go into the application, you'll see that when you get to that question, what file types are supported. And then there's another question. Is it better to self-nominate or be nominated? It's a good question. This is from Polly Knowlton Cockett. Nina, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, and we do get this question sometimes, and there is no clear benefit one way or the other. I mean, it's not, one way is not better than the other. We sometimes have people nominate themselves and they also get nominated by someone else at the same year. I think, so I guess my answer is there's no clear benefit. You clearly know your work maybe better than anyone else. When people that nominate themselves, we often see just really great detail about their work and about their leadership and their motivations, because you know yourself better than anyone else. This year, I will get to this. This year, you have the option to submit a letter of reference. And so if you're looking for kind of a balance between the two, you can nominate yourself, and you can also get a letter of reference from someone else who might nominate you, who might have nominated you. So that's my answer.
Yeah.
Do you have something to add?
No, I think that's a great answer. And I have a couple more questions, and I know that you have some more pieces of the application to get into, but a question from Elvis to follow up: does the project or initiative have to be registered as a legal entity? And I would just say, Elvis, I can answer that quickly. No, and the application itself is really about you and your leadership, and you can use different projects or initiatives in any way to exemplify how you used leadership and how you're using environmental education in your work. I hope that answers it. Nina, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's great.
Okay, so let's see. Another question. If we have led multiple events, 16 events, is it okay to mention combined impact, or should I mention the impact of individuals? I guess I think
the
impact of each
projects,
event. Maybe. Yeah.
Each event. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think this is a good question. I think part of the issue is space and word count. And so we want to see how well you can articulate your impact as an environmental education leader in the space that's allotted. So you might say, I've led 16 events, and as a result, here's what happened. And here's why this is a great illustration of my leadership qualities. However you think is the most compelling way to word it within the space provided is the best way to go, if that makes sense. Okay, boy, we have a lot of questions. Okay, so here's another one. Are there guidelines for the letters of reference?
So this is our first year doing letters of reference, but we don't have guidelines necessarily, but if you request that someone fills out a letter of reference for you, there's a way to do this through the form. If you go through the application form, you have a place to put in someone's email address, and a request gets sent to them through the application platform. And they will simply, it's an open question to them, simply asking them to share why they think you should be an EE 30 under 30. So it gives them a really open space to share anything that they want to share about your leadership, about your projects.
Okay, and the final question is it fine to nominate a young parent, a young individual with great contribution to environmental education but already has a child? Of course. Yeah. The only criteria we have for this application is that you must be 30 years of age or younger by December 31st, 2021. And we would love to see anyone who considers themselves leaders in environmental education apply. Okay, I think that's it for the questions in the chat. I'm gonna turn it back over to Nina.
Great, thank you. So many good questions. Keep them coming. We've still got time. So yes, I'm going to go through the last couple of questions in the application. The next question is, why would you describe yourself as a leader? Please describe your leadership style and or qualities, and share specific examples of how it shows up in your work. So, and I will say, if you don't know what your leadership style is, don't worry about that. We included a couple different ways of talking about leadership in this question. So talk about your leadership style, talk about your leadership qualities, any skills that you have that you think, are the skills or important qualities of a leader. And so with this question, we don't have a definition of what a leader is, and that's very intentional on our part. So we recognize that leadership means different things to different people, maybe in different cultures, in different communities, in different sectors. So this question is your opportunity to describe to us, to the reviewers, to the selection panel, why you see yourself or why you see the nominee as a leader. And another comment that we get from our external reviewers, a common piece of feedback that we get from them about this question is that they wish that nominees would provide more examples of how they have demonstrated these leadership qualities in their projects or in their careers. So if you talk about any qualities or abilities or values that you have that you think are an important part of your leadership, we encourage you to give some examples, or at least a couple examples across the whole question about how that quality, about how you've shown that quality through your projects or through your life. And so the examples that you give here, they don't necessarily have to be directly connected to your environmental education projects, because we recognize that, you all are leaders even outside of your environmental education work. So if you can connect it to the work that you've described earlier in your application, that's great. But if you have really great examples of how you've been a leader in other areas of your life, please do include that. But we need you to, the best answers to this question tend to give examples of how different qualities or leadership styles have shown up throughout your life or through your projects. All right. And then the next question is, how do you hope to grow as a leader in the next 10 years? So this could include any skills, abilities, or impact you hope to work on in the coming years. So the first three questions are about what you've done and what you've already demonstrated through your projects. And so with this question, we want to know about your goals and how you hope to grow in the coming years. So we want to better understand your long-term vision. So this could include what impact you hope to have in the coming years, but this could also include how you hope to grow yourself through any skills or abilities or new skills that you want to learn. And this could include a specific career goal that you have for the coming years, like a position or a title that you want to have. But I really encourage you to focus on the skills and impact that you hope to have. So not just a position that you want to have eventually. We want to see your vision go beyond, achieving a certain position. That's great if it's part of it, but we want to hear about, like we say in the question, any skills, abilities, or impact that you hope to have in the coming years. And this overall just helps us see how you hope to continue growing as a leader, and how you hopefully have a growth mindset in thinking about your leadership. Okay, and then the last question that we're going to talk about is about how you will engage with the alumni community. So the EE30 under 30 community encourages alumni to engage with each other year-round through networking and professional learning. And this community thrives on active engagement from its members. How do you see yourself contributing to this community? What do you have to offer to fellow awardees? And how would you grow from this community? So you'll see there are basically two parts to this question, and related to this virtual alumni community that I mentioned earlier on. So we want to see how you see yourself contributing to this community, and also how you see yourself growing from this community. So think of it in two parts. And so I understand this can be kind of hard to maybe communicate answering a question. But you can generally talk about why you'd be excited to join this community, you know, in addition to what you think you would contribute and how you would grow. You can talk about why you would be excited to join the community. And you can, if you want, you can give some examples of how you've engaged maybe with other communities, other learning communities, you know, some examples of what you've contributed to those communities, or examples of what you've learned, and tie it back to what you might contribute to and learn from this community. So, and then if you are nominating someone else, we really encourage you to provide a quote from the nominee, from the person you are nominating, about their interest in joining this community. I understand some of you might be nominating someone and you want it to be a surprise, and that's okay. That's why we just say we encourage you to provide a quote from the nominee. But especially for this question, it really helps to hear from the nominee themselves why they would want to join this community. And then I'm almost done here, and then we will have time for questions as well. So I'm just going to wrap this up. Like I mentioned, this is the first year we are doing letters of reference. They are optional, but we do recommend them. And they are also due May 5th, the same deadline as the application, as the broader application. And I'm not going to screen share because I'm worried about getting back and forth between things, but if you want to request a letter of reference from someone, you do it through the application itself. So you go through the application, you'll see the questions that we've already gone through, and there will be a space for you to put in someone's email address in order to request for them to submit a letter of reference. So for example, if you want your teacher to submit a letter of reference for you, you would put their email address in the field under letter of reference in the application. Then the application platform will automatically send them a request to fill out a reference for you. And they just have to submit that reference before May 5th. Now, you will not see what they submit for you, but I do encourage you to remind them to, you know, if it's been a while and you haven't heard from them, if it's getting close to May 5th, I do encourage you to remind them to submit it before May 5th. And yeah, I think that is all I have to share about that. Kelly, okay, I will answer this question right now. Great question. Will the application portal indicate if they have submitted the reference letter? I think it does. I actually will check on that. This is the first year we are using this new platform, so I'm pretty sure it does. But I will check for you. So I would encourage you to still check with the person who's submitting the reference. And I would also encourage you to give that person a heads up that you will be asking them to submit a reference, because the email that goes to them, it won't come from a person, it will come from Submittable, it will come from the platform. So you will want to make sure that it's not going to their spam. So make sure that they know that something is coming. Okay. Here, I know we've got a couple questions about the letter references, but I'm just gonna go through this and then this is the last slide and then I'll get back to these. So my last thing to say is, if you go to the EE 13 or 30 webpage at the top here, you will find pretty much all the information you will need. You will also find my contact information if you have any other questions. So at this website, you can access our online application. You can also preview the application, and I think that is not up there yet, but I will put that up there today so that you can access a Word document version of the application. We only accept applications through the web, through Submittable, so through the link that's on there. But we do put up a Word version that just helps, you know, if you want to work on it in Word and then put it in the online application later. There's also a link on there to help us spread the word. So there are some example social media posts. If you want to help spread the word, we have lots of examples there to help you do so. I will put the recording of this on this website within the next 48 hours. And you can also view all of the biographies of our alumni. And that is it. I can stick around for, I'll stick around for a few minutes and answer any more questions. I know there are a lot of questions. I really appreciate you all throwing these great questions at us. And if you have to leave, if you have any other questions later, you can email me. My email address is on here.
And thank you so much, Nina. And I did get several questions in the chat, and I believe I mostly answered them there, but please unmute yourself and ask your question if you have a follow-up or if you have any other questions. Let's see here. I got a question that says, is it okay if the reference letter arrives after the submission of my application, but before the deadline?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is totally fine. And that might happen in some cases.
Yes, and also you can submit the request for your reference before you submit your application. So if you know who you want to submit your reference, I would recommend go ahead and go to that part of the application, put their email in and hit submit. You don't have to have completed your application for that request to go out. So you can submit that request and continue working on your application. Your nomination.
And Bhargav Patel, you have your hand raised. Did you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. Am I audible?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So first of all, thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. It clears out a lot of doubts. But okay, and my question was like, okay, currently I'm 22 and I'm going to apply for this EE 30 under 30 award. And a person who is maybe 20 to 29 is also going to apply. Okay, so definitely the person who is 20 29, he has more experience and has a more chance to work around, like, to a bigger community or maybe start his own organization. So if both of the people are applying, how the applications are evaluated for different age groups?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
That's a great question. And it's hard to give a very clear answer to that because I would say through the review process, I think nominees that are older clearly have more experience. They have more experiences that they can, well, I won't say clearly, generally they might have more experience than some of the younger nominees. But I don't think age is really factored into how and actually I encourage our reviewers to not factor age into how they're reviewing the nominations. It's really about how you're talking about your work, about your projects, and the examples of the projects that you are giving. So I think, you know, someone can have years of experience with environmental education, but someone who might be younger with maybe a little bit less experience, they might have just better, they might more clearly show leadership in their work. They might have just a really clear vision of, you know, of the impact that they want to have with their work. So, and that's not a very clear answer, but I don't let that discourage you if you are younger. I guess I will just say that. And we really, in the selection process, once we get all of the review feedback and we go through and select, we really intentionally so award a range of ages, because it's important to recognize leaders of all ages. So I hope that helps. And Melissa, did you have anything to add?
Definitely it does help. And just a follow-up question, a small question, like how many applications you received each year, like from last 2 to 3 years, how many applications you have received for as a nominations?
So last year we had about 270 nominations, and each year it has increased a little bit. Who knows how many we'll get this year, but last year was 270.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
A question about reference letters. Can people submit more than one, or are we just looking for one?
I think it only allows you to do one.
One, right, okay.
Yeah, so think really carefully about who you want to submit that reference.
Yes, and I need to jump off, Nina, but I will.
Yeah, I will stick around just for another
Okay,
question or two. Thank you, Melissa, for your help.
Thank you, and thanks for all the great questions, everyone, and good luck.
Yeah, so I'll stick around for another couple of minutes if there are any other questions. Elvis, great question. Will a reference letter from a previous winner be most helpful? So I think if they know you well and they know about your projects well, great. The most important thing about, you know, when you're choosing who will write a reference for you is it doesn't matter who they are, what their title or position is. What matters most is how well they know you, how much they can attest to your leadership, your leadership abilities and your leadership style. Great. And like I said, if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to email me, even if it's a technical question about the website. It's taking me maybe a day or two to get to, because there's a lot of emails coming in, but I'm happy to answer any questions, and I will try to find answers. There are a couple questions in here that I didn't have a clear answer to. I'll try to address that in my email that I send out with the recording to this. So thank you all for joining. Best of luck with your nominations, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.